Get out the insurance cards, get out the copays. The office is open, my friends. Brought to you by drroto.com.
What is up, and welcome in. We are the One and Done Show. We are your fast break of college basketball information. I am your humble host tonight. My name is Eric Romoff. You can catch me on those Twitter streets at FantasyNav, and he is the captain of our ship here at Greens Media. He is MC Holland34 on Twitter. He is Mr. Mike Holland. Mike, what it do, my guy?
Yo, what it do, my friend? It's been a fun 24 to 48 hours with these afternoon delights with these conference tournaments in the mid-majors. So, these things are tipping off at 12 Eastern. So we got basketball pretty much all day. We have the big conferences wrapping up tomorrow, and everyone's finishing up on Sunday. So, of course, the Big Ten wants the final day to play a few games before we get everything really settled and started. So, we got a lot coming up, man. I know we've got about 5 or 6, 7 shows prepped already. So here we go. It's takeoff mode for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, and I'm excited to do it.
Man, big time diva energy, the Big Ten, and that surprises absolutely nobody. So they're going to have the last games of the regular season on the slate, and then we are deep into the heart of conference tournament season, which is precisely what we are doing here tonight. If you caught us last Sunday night, we broke down 12 different conference tournaments in the mid-major ranks, or mostly the mid-major ranks. Tonight, we're running it right back from the top. We've got 4 more conference tournaments that are tipping off tomorrow. So we're going to get you everything that you need to know about those 4 tournaments in a moment. But first, there's been plenty of conference tournament action so far. So, Mike, why don't you kick us off with a little bit of a recap, what the people need to know about everything that's transpired so far in the college basketball postseason?
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's break it down here. The Missouri Valley Conference, the top 3 seeds all advanced to the semis. This is a conference that we were paying close attention to because they are the one mid-major conference that has an opportunity to get 2 at-large bid, that being the number 1 seed Indiana State and the number 2 seed Drizzy Drake. Following with them right now, Northern Iowa's in there. They are the 4 seed, and then Bradley is currently playing Illinois Chicago in the second half. So, Bradley advances, obviously the top 4 seeds in the Missouri Valley. That would be some fire for the final 2 days there. The Sun Belt, the 11 seed Texas State, they shocked our dark horse 6 seed Southern Miss and Andre Curbelo. So we have the 1 seed Appalachian State sitting at plus 180 on DK, which I think is a pretty good price still, because the 2 seed is actually the favorite, which is James Madison at plus 125. Still in a great spot as well, so you can get some decent money there for the 2 favorites. The Big South here, Drew Pember saved the 2 seed UNC Asheville today from the 7 seed Charleston Southern. That was a pretty good down the stretch run. He hit a couple of big threes to get them out of that late hole. Looked like they were going to lose that thing under the 4-minute mark. Moving on to the Horizon here, it's been pure madness in the Horizon League. The 2, 3, and 4 seeds all beaten. If that sounds familiar, the 1 seed here, Oakland, is the only one still alive here at the top of the board. They're going to play Cleveland State at plus 400. We talked about all 8 teams potentially winning this league, so
for real.
Yeah, pretty much right on par, right? You get the 2, 3, and 4 seed knocked right out of this thing, and what do you know? The 8 seed and some of these lower seeds are still alive. So some of my key takeaways from the early parts and the latter parts of some of these tournaments, as we know, these are going to cross over each other, and we're going to get a champion actually this Sunday that'll be crowned. So that'll be actually I think we get one tomorrow as well. So we'll have some teams punching their way into the NCAA tournament. Any conferences that you see out there that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, well, one of the leagues that will crown their champion and have that team punch their ticket is the Sun. Their championship round is set for this Sunday. I think it's at 2 p.m. Eastern. 2 seed, the 2-seeded Stetson. They are heavy favorites against Austin Peay here. Austin Peay is coming in at plus 180 overall. So you got a 2-4 matchup in the A-Sun should be a pretty good game for that one. We called Austin P as a potential team to watch here in the ASUN. So always nice to see one of our Cinderellas, one of our dark horses, make a little bit of a run. In this case, Austin P to the finals. And then we also have the Ohio Valley, right? This is one that we should have set and buttoned up after this show is over. So games that are actively going on. The 1 seed Little Rock is in the title game against the winner of Morehead State and UT Martin. That game is just now tipping off. So Little Rock is awaiting their opponent. Championship game will play tomorrow. So yeah, we're at the time of year where not only are these tournaments in swing, but we are starting to get a pretty good idea as to which teams are going to be making their way into the March Madness tournament. And we also, as always, have a pretty good idea of who some of our favorite people are rocking with us in the comment section. Mama Rocks, what a do, my favorite dudes. Appreciate you swinging through. And then Nape doing the needful, heating us up. It's actually, we're getting a little bit of a cold snap here in San Antonio. So I appreciate the flamage. Keep things warm as we roll through. So let's, Mike, what do you say? Let's jump right into the first league that we're going to break down here, huh?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited. We got 4 mid-majors that we're going to talk about. And then we've got 7 more that we're going to do, I think, on Sunday. And then Monday, we're going to bring you the 9 power conferences that are remaining. So pretty excited to talk about the AEC, because we have a team here that we thought was going to win the regular season title pretty easily, because that's all they do. So let's jump into the A East.
Let's get after it. The A East. This one is pretty interesting, right? We're looking at the 21st ranked conference according to KenPom. They are 11th out of the 22 mid majors. That team that you were alluding to a moment ago, Vermont, the number 1 overall seed after a 15-1 campaign. Number 2 and number 3 both finished with 11-5 records, that being UMass Lowell and Bryant. New Hampshire and Binghamton are sitting there at 7-9 records, as is Maine. So those are your 4, 5, and 6 seeds. UMBC is our 7 seed at 6 and 10. And then Albany is the 8th and final seed at 5 and 11. Unfortunately, NJIT will be staying home for the conference tournament. So they're taking 8 teams. This is the 8th year in a row that Vermont has the regular season title and the 7th year outright. So obviously they are overwhelming favorites as we take a look at this bracket. I guess, before we kind of break down the field at large, like, let's double click on Vermont. Like, what makes this squad so good? Like, what about this program just perennially has them in this one spot?
Coaching, man. Coach Becker.
It matters.
We talked about him in the preseason, just a legend. Dominated this league for 13 years now. So, what is what is here in this A East. But I guess what makes this team different when you look at it from the metric standpoint on the defensive end, this is the highest rated defensive efficiency they've had under Becker. They're 60th in defensive efficiency in the country. So, man, they're playing some tough D. Their offense, it's kind of taking a step back, especially on the outside shooting, but they're obviously an overwhelming favorite. And oddly, their only loss in conference play was on the road to NJIT. So a bit of a head scratcher there, but that's college basketball, right? Try being an
just a look ahead game, total look ahead scenario.
Absolutely, here, man. So just a weird deal, like how a team that can win 8 conference championships in a row loses to a team that can't even make the conference tournament. But that's March, and that's madness for you in the college basketball scene. So a little bit of a note here: they're playing Albany, the 8 seed, this Saturday. They'll be missing TJ Hurley and Matt Veretto for that game. So, key contributors for them, but, they still have TJ Long, averaged 12 points, 4 rebounds for them. He was a transfer from Fairfield. Aaron Deloney's still there, averaging 11 points, 3 assists on the year. They're a very, very balanced team. So, all the other depth's going to take a little bit of a hit. They shouldn't have any problem dispatching Albany there.
Yeah, I would expect that to be the case, as do our friends in the desert. So pretty heavy favorites in that 1-8 matchup. It feels like with the America East, like they're kind of tier breaks here, right? Like yes, Vermont is the overwhelming favorite, and they continue to dominate this league. We also have some pretty familiar faces from our preseason show that are sitting at the 2 and 3 seed, right? Like UMass Lowell and Bryant, respectively, are filling those spots, and they are pretty fine squads and fine programs in their own right. Obviously, still looking up at Vermont, but I want to kind of give them their flowers and examine a little bit more about these two teams sitting at 2 and 3 on their ends of the bracket.
Yeah, so I think UMass Lowell is pretty interesting. Number one offensive efficiency in the America East play. They played Vermont very competitively. Overtime at home, they lost by 12 on the road last week. So this is a team that excels in getting to the free throw line, which you really like. Ayinde Hakeem averaging 15 points, 4 boards, and 5 assists. And they have Quinton Mincy, who averaged 14 points and 6 boards. Tough names to say, but they got games. So definitely like UMass Lowell. Bryant, they're a darling of mine. They're better defensively. They're the 3 seed. Now, they struggled against Vermont in both games. So, although I like them better overall, their roster, top to bottom, I really prefer them. It feels like UMass Lowell may have the matchup advantage. They're missing their stud wing, Bryant, is Earl Timberlake. He has a hand injury. He has a splint on it. It's day-to-day. He's averaging 14 points per game. Just an awesome player. He's kind of the two-headed monster of Sharif Gross-Bullock, who we talked about a lot this preseason, who averaged 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 2.5 assists in a very, very fine season. So although I like Bryant's roster top to bottom, if they're missing Timberlake, and then, obviously it looks like the way these teams matched up against Vermont, you got to maybe give UMass Lowell a little bit of an advantage here as a team that can potentially knock off Vermont. But I want to ask you, man, any dark horses that you're filling out there? I know it's pretty clear up at the top, so we might be fishing for in some waters that don't have any fish. But what do you think here?
I mean, look, like very top heavy league overall, right? But as you mentioned when you were breaking down the Vermont squad, like, any team on any given night can spring up and surprise someone, right? Like those Highlanders taking down Vermont for their only conference loss probably wasn't on anybody's bingo card, right? So, anything can happen. Taking it with a grain of salt that the 3 teams we've covered are the ones that are the the clear favorites. If I had to take a kind of a gamble on a dark horse, I kind of like New Hampshire. They are the 4 seed, so solid season overall in its own regard. Like I don't know if I would necessarily take them to win the tournament, but they're a team that could potentially spoil the run of one of these top 3 teams. They've got superstar forward Clarence Daniels. He's given them almost 20 points and 9.3 boards per game, but there's not a whole lot around him, right? So, that lack of depth is why there isn't a ton of confidence around this team. But I mean, we talked about it with Drew Pember and UNC Asheville, right? Like a star player gets hot in these sort of tournament environments, these one and done environments, and they can drag a team all the way into the finals. So if we have to kind of set aside those top 3, I'll not reach too far and look at the number 4 seed in UNH with the Wildcats. So that will do it for the A East. Before we move on, if you have any opinions of the A East, are you eating the chalk? Are you playing the Vermont ticket to make their way into March Madness as the representative of the A East? Do you have any dark horses or sleepers that you want to mention? Let us know in those comments. While you're there, scroll on over, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Like Mike mentioned off the top, we are pushing out piles of content as we head into conference tournament play, and while we still have a few DFS slates left to attack. So make sure that you're following along. Hitting that subscribe button is the best way to do it as we move along to the Big Sky Conference. This one's kind of interesting. So we've got KenPom with them ranked 22nd out of all 32 conferences in the nation, 12th in terms of the mid majors. The number 1 seed overall, Eastern Washington, our friend Coach Riley, someone that we talked to over the course of the offseason, put up a 15-3 record that earned them the 1 seed. Northern Colorado coming in at 12-6, as is Montana. Those are the teams sitting at 2-3. Weber State put up an 11-7 campaign to earn them the 4 seed. Montana State an even 9-9, whereas Portland State finished 8-10 on the year. Northern Arizona and Idaho State 7-8 after finishing 7-11 on the year. Idaho 5-13, and then we have Sacramento State rounding us out at 4-14, earning them the 10 spot. So Eastern Washington, we talked about this over the course of the offseason. We talked about this with Coach Riley himself, right? Like, lost a lot of talent last year, but we're really able to dominate the league for back-to-back league crowns, right? So maybe not quite as impressive a run as the Vermont team we profiled earlier, at least not yet. But back-to-back years is not nothing, right? So, Mike, how does this number one overall seed these Eastern Washington squad profile in the tournament?
Yeah, I love that Coach Riley came on with us. Appreciate him giving that time. And he mentioned it, like, they're going to play a very fun, fast-paced offense. That is what they built out there in Eastern Washington. They're plus 200 in Vegas right now. I feel like that's a very good number, although there is a big challenger that I'm going to mention here that we profiled as probably the team to beat in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
But, hey, Eastern Washington, top 75 offense in the country. They're playing top 50 in pace, so getting up and down, getting the ball in the basket. And here's the thing, too. This was smart. They played the 18th toughest non-con schedule in the country. So they got absolutely beat up to start the season. Mm-hmm. And then when it came to conference play, it didn't seem as hard. So an excellent three-point shooting team. That actually puts them at 4th in the country in effective field goal percentage. So their weighted field goals are much higher than the rest of the country here. Wing Cedric Howard just kind of came out of nowhere, 15 points per game, 7 rebounds. Casey Jones, 12.5 points, 4.5 assists. Love his goggles there. But I think the biggest challenger to them, and somebody that I would lay some coin on, is Weber State, the 4 seed. Yes, the Fighting Damian Lillard's here. Plus 300. They lost by 2 to Eastern Washington at the beginning of conference play, but then they won on the road there in the middle of February. We love them coming in as all 5 starters returned. They're top 50 in the country and D1 experience. And then they have a superstar. If you haven't heard of him, his name is Dylan Jones, and he averaged 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. So Dylan Jones, an absolute load to handle. You just talked about it. You get one of these superstars hot, can absolutely carry a team into the NCAA tournament. That is why Eastern Washington, probably sitting at the plus 200, because you have Weber State, even as the 4 seed with the second best odds to win the tournament. So while they didn't completely take care of business during conference play, I still think the old Wildcats here able to make it to the tournament. But, man, who do you got on this side, man? Anybody else you think can make a little bit of noise?
Yeah, I first off, I agree that plus 200 for Eastern Washington is an appealing price, but they've got some landmines that they're going to have to navigate to make their way through this bracket, right? Weber State, you make a solid case for. I think Northern Colorado, the Bears, the 3 seed is going to have a lot to say in how this one will be won when it's all said and done, right? So sitting at the 3 seed, if you're looking to speculate out in the gambling markets, you can get them at a plus 550 price. It's actually the 4th highest in the conference. So they too, kind of like Weber State, have a superstar that can absolutely heat up and change the game for them. In their case, it's forward St. Thomas, 20 points, 10 boards, 4 assists per game, right? So absolute monster coming over from Loyola Chicago. This is a Northern Colorado team that is, at least heading into the offseason, was navigating the loss of Dalton Connect. Obviously, Connect is having a pretty solid year for the Volunteers. So, a big void left in his wake, but St. Thomas steps up and is filling it admirably. And they're a solid team, kind of top to bottom, at least in terms of the overall statistics, right? They're 3rd best offense in Big Sky play, another solid 3-point shooting team. These types of teams can absolutely cause a fit in these one and done formats. So big part of the reason why Northern Colorado has earned themselves a 2 seed. And it's not too often that you see the second seed in any of these brackets carrying long odds like plus 550. So you want to drop a unit, you want to speculate out in those gambling markets. Don't mind looking away from the one line in the Big Sky. As we will look on to the third league that we're going to break down here, it's the SLC, the Southland Conference. So Ken Palm has them sitting at 27th overall and 17th out of the 22 mid-majors. McNeese State, 17-1 in conference play. That gets them the 1 seed. Texas A&M Corpus Christi put up a 14-4 record to be on the opposing side of the bracket at number 2. Nicholls State has a 3 seed after finishing 13-5, whereas Lamar was the 4th seed. 12-6 was their conference record. Southern Louisiana put up a 10-8 record. Northwestern State at 7-11. They are in the middle of the bracket at 5-6. Texas A&M Commerce was on the wrong side of 500 at 6-12. That finds them in the 7th spot. And in the last spot here in the bracket, New Orleans put up a 14-4 record. Pour one out for Houston Christian and Incarnate Word. They put up 4-14 and 3-15 records and did not get an invite to the tournament. So, look, I mean, the text thread has been on fire as I've been nominating Will Wade for Coach of the Year, right? Like, just came in and immediately turned things around, got McNeese State up to the top of this conference. Obviously, they're sitting as monster favorites as we talk about the conference tournament. So tell us a little bit more about this McNeese State side and what makes them so dangerous.
Well, it's nice to see that a lot of teams that we profiled at the beginning of the year coming through for us. Minus 330. Minus 330. I don't...
There's no way you can place that bet, right? Like,
there's no way. Not in college basketball can you place that bet. But if you're going to bet on someone, it's Will Wade and winning. That's all he does is win, man. Like, a top 75 offense and defense in the country, a top 10 three-point shooting team in the country, top 25 defending the two-point land in the country. Their only loss in conference play was on the road to Southeastern Louisiana State. So, yeah, I think, I mean, you can't, right? You just absolutely can't. It's like one of those bets where you go out there and you put, somebody puts $1,000 on a minus 330 and it just never works out. So I wouldn't put any coin there, but this does feel like the safest team across the entire country to win their conference tournament. I mean, TCU transfer Shahada Wells, just absolutely magnificent. 17 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. Oh, by the way, 3 steals. Christian Shoemate came back, which is a big win for Will Wade. 12 points, 10 rebounds, over a shot blocked per game. So now I mentioned the Southeast Louisiana as their one loss. I think they could at least feel confident matching up since they were able to get the win. They're not going to be afraid, right? They're the 5 seed, 50-1. Anybody that has a win over this team, middle of the pack on both ends of the floor in conference play. These guys really share the rock, though. They're 12th in the country in assist rate. So really able to move the ball around and make things happen. Now, they do most of their damage from 3, and they also get to the free throw line. Nick Caldwell, 16 points and 5.5 rebounds. Roger McFarland, someone that we talked about as one of the better players in this conference. He finished the year with 15 points and 8.5 rebounds. So they got some players, and they got that win earlier this year to give them that confidence. So obviously that's probably thrown out the window when they match up again. But you have to at least look at that for a reason if you're trying to find something, because everyone else, when someone's minus 330, everyone else in this conference is going to have a solid odds. So what say you on this conference tournament?
Yeah, I mean, look, like I think on merit, you probably have the best case to make that that McNeese State should win their conference tournament. But I mean, these things are always so crazy and wide open. I can't see myself eating that big of a number, in a one and done style format. But looking up and down the rest of the bracket, like I totally get why you're planting your flag behind Southeast Louisiana, especially at that number. These guys are coming in playing well. But for me, like, Texas A&M Corpus Christi is a little bit more appealing. The Island Boys, number 2 in the tournament bracket, they're carrying a plus 300 number. I mean, look, like how do you stop a runaway train in the conference tournament, right? Like start with a top 100 defense in the country. Then you have to like how they are the 3rd best adjusted offense in the Southland. They attack you on offense by committee, right? Like top 30 in bench minutes are getting these fresh legs out there, and they just keep coming in waves. Gary Clark is probably the player of note that we need to highlight here, right? He's given him 13 points and 8 boards per game, but this is in the midst of a very wide rotation. So the Texas A&M CC side, I think that with the matchups that they can put themselves into by getting those those fresh players onto the court, like they can really keep the pressure high. Don't mind them at all. And it's not too often that you see a 2 seed carrying plus 300 odds like that. So that's where I'll speculate if I have to pick someone to beat McNeese State. But practically speaking, that is a tall order, no matter who we want to highlight here in the Southland Conference. Mike, before we move on to our next conference, Will Wade, 17-1, year 1 in McNeese State. Does he stay for year number 2, or is he off to greener pastures for next season?
Yeah, we got the 5-year extension from McNeese State, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, DePaul should just go out there. Yeah, I mean, DePaul should just go out there and get him. I don't know why they just don't throw a crazy number at him. I know it comes with all this other stuff that he's got going on from his time at LSU, but DePaul's in the cellar, so why not? I mean, you can't go any farther back, so
right.
I don't know, man. Like it's interesting. I just don't know how he stays there, especially if they get to the tournament and if they beat somebody. Like he's already one of the hottest names, right? So. Right now, as we stand on March 8th, I think he's still going to be there at least 1 more year, but
oh my God,
we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
Man, I'm on the other side, right? Like there are so many programs that are desperate for a proven winner and a splashy coaching hire. 5-year extension be damned, right? Like there is a big bag out there, and in today's day and age, like. What happened with him at LSU? It almost seems quaint, right? Like it's from a bygone era. So I don't know if that's going to hold him down very much. Before we move on to our 4th and final conference, Mama Rock's showing us a little love. These tourney previews are really helpful for those teams that we haven't been playing routinely. Mama Rock's knows. Mama Rock's has got that DFS eye always open, trying to figure out which guys we need to try to roster, and appreciate the love. We love going through these mid-major brackets and talking about the teams that we like getting their way through, some of the betting lines, some of these star players to watch. So appreciate you rocking with us as always as we move on to the aforementioned 4th and final conference, the MEAC, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. Oh boy. So try to set aside the mid-90s graphics here on their official tournament bracket, and just pay attention to the underlying metrics, which are that the MEAC is ranked 30th out of 32 conferences in the whole country, 20th among the mid-majors. Their number 1 seed, Norfolk State, earned that seed by posting an 11-3 record. Then we have a jumble of teams at 9-5 occupying the 2, 3, and 4 seed. North Carolina Central, South Carolina State, and Howard. Morgan State, right at 500, gets them the 5th seed after going 7-7. Delaware State, 6-8 on the year, gets them the 6th seed. Maryland Eastern Shore posted a 4-10 record for the 7th spot. And then occupying the 8th spot in the bracket, Coppin State at 1-13. So Norfolk State, not putting together a gaudy streak like some of the teams we've talked about here, but a pretty solid run overall. Took down its 3rd regular season title in 6 years, Mike. So let's spend some time taking a look at the 1 seed.
Yeah, we got to look at them plus 180. That's not bad overall profile, like for any of these teams. when you're when you're this low in the conference metrics, like your overall profiles are not going to look great. But inside of conference play in the MEAC, they were the number 3 offense and the number 1 defense. They can't really make outside shots, but they're great at getting to the free throw line. They're number 11 in the country in free throw rate. And Coach Robert Jones has done a great job there. Jamari Thomas, the guard there, 17.5 points, 4 boards, 4 assists. So a very, very versatile player for them. So, yeah, you have to like Norfolk State, plus 180 is a solid number for a team that, won the league by 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely, right. And they've got the goods to make another NCAA tournament, right? But they are not doing so, presumably, without getting through North Carolina Central, right? Like this is the 2 seed. They're carrying plus 220 odds, the best offense in the league. And they're speared by a solid inside-outside kind of game, right? So kind of like Norfolk, top 20 in the country in free throw rate. They come into the tournament having won 4 of their last 5 games, so they got Big Mo on their side, and they've got a little bit more of a peanut butter spread in terms of contributors. 3 guys averaging 14 points or more, with guard Fred Cleveland averaging 15 points and 5.5 dimes per game. So North Carolina Central definitely feels like they are in a position to to be set up for a deep run here to potentially knock off Norfolk State if they end up facing them, which would be in the championship game. So kind of like how the 2 seed looks for this one, Mike. Any other squads here that we need to pay a little bit closer attention to before we wrap this one up?
Oof, man. I mean, you can look at Howard, you can look at South Carolina State. If you want a deep shot, I would take Morgan State, the 5 seed, 22-1. Why not? I mean, they're one of the youngest teams in Division I, so they don't really know what's going on right now, which kind of makes them dangerous. They won back-to-back games coming into this tournament, and they actually beat North Carolina Central in one of those games. They're fast, and they love to get into the paint. They're the best free throw shooting team in the league, so you love that for games that come down to the wire. Shot 80% from the free throw line during conference play. And then they have a guy, Winston Tabbs, who averaged 14.5 points per game. You may remember him from East Carolina, or better yet, when he was actually not injured, he was playing at Boston College a few years ago, and a very, very good player. Obviously started his career in the ACC. So now finally healthy here with Morgan State, the 5 seed. 22-1 is kind of interesting, but I'm with you. I mean, Norfolk State, they've looked pretty dominant. North Carolina Central with a very nice offensive repertoire here and some pretty good individual players. So, if we get an upset here, Morgan State obviously going to probably have to knock off both teams, which puts their odds pretty long.
Yeah, it absolutely would, right? Like this league in particular feels like it's a little bit more evenly distributed in terms of the power rankings. So going to be a dogfight for whoever makes their way out of the MEAC and into the March Madness tournament. So that will do it for our 4-pack here. Again, the A East, the Big Sky, the Southland, and then finally the MEAC are the conferences that we ran through here. For everyone that tuned in tonight, I appreciate you rocking with us, dropping in the live chat like Mama Rocks and Napesy Hustle, Chris Napier did. If you're catching us on the replay, if you have any questions, let us know. We love to interact with people after the show and answer any questions that might pop up in the comments. But also, if you have any flag plants, do you have any spicy takes that you want to put on record? You want to get it on wax so you can go back and point to it when Vermont gets bounced in the first round, right? Whatever it might be. This is your opportunity to do so, right? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you guys are thinking. Mike, we're closing up here. Before we get out, I guess kind of any closing thoughts on the tournaments that are already in play or any of the leagues that we talked about tonight?
I mean, these mid-majors are fun, right? But I'm ready for the big boys here. We're going to preview them on Monday once everything wraps up from Sunday's Big Ten action, because you're going to have at-large bubble teams. All these conferences that we're talking about outside of the Missouri Valley as true mid-majors, they're one-bid leagues. So it didn't matter what you really did in the regular season. If you swept it and then you lose in the first round, well, you're not getting to the tournament. So obviously you're going to have a bunch of bubble teams in these power conferences where one win could be enough in the tournament, or you may have to win the whole thing. So I'm excited to get that going, but it's always good to talk mid-majors because like Mama Rock said, like we've been trying to profile and spotlight them on our Sunday recap show pretty much the entire year. I think we did maybe 10 different segments profiling different conferences and trying to touch them all to give you guys some information that you need, because you got to be prepared before you start to fill out your bracket, or at least know the profiles of these teams as we head into March.
100%. Mike, you mentioned that we are gearing up for previewing the conference tournaments for the high majors, but before that, we're actually going to be back on Sunday night with 7 more mid-major conferences to talk about and to go all the way up and down those brackets. So make sure that you are locked here. Make sure that you are subscribed and you have that notification bell on so you don't miss that. And then, of course, can't get too far away from our roots here, right? We are going to be back live before lock tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. in the Central Time Zone, 9:30 East, to break down what is unfortunately one of the few remaining sizable DraftKings slates out there, right? The DFS streets are starting to wind down a little bit as we gear up towards conference tournament and March Madness time. So, Mike, I believe it's you and Jay that are going to be rocking live before lock tomorrow. Make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss that. And then obviously, once we get into the actual big dance, the March Madness bracket, we'll have a few more slates that we can break down. But looking forward to breaking down Saturday's slate with Jay and Mike tomorrow morning. Looking forward to hearing all of your comments and questions up in those comments. Make sure that if you're subscribed, you're following along, you're tailing Mike's plays, and you're getting this bread.
Thanks for stopping by the office. Get your fantasy prescription by subscribing to the channel and checking out drrodo.com. And until the next visit, be well and take care.